Guidance is internal. Ignition sequence starts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Permission to board. Permission to come aboard. Permission to board. Permission to bring me aboard. Permission to come aboard.
Welcome to the Permission Granted podcast. Here's DA.
All right, welcome inside the freshest edition of the Permission Granted podcast, everybody. A reminder that we are available on YouTube always if you're listening to us on iTunes or SoundCloud. That's youtube.com/The DA Show. Also, we are on iTunes, so check it out there, DA's Permission Granted, and also on SoundCloud. And if you are on iTunes and subscribing to it, leave comments or rate it, because that way we can kind of get some feedback from you guys, what you want to hear, what you like, what you don't like, and move us up the iTunes, the chart. So we appreciate you listening, and this marks the final episode of the Permission Granted podcast that will come from the overnight show. And it's not really an overnight show anymore because nobody else is working besides me. Brock left a month ago for the TV side of things, okay? It's all about the money, DA. Then you had Mraz off for the better part of 2 weeks. Now Schwartz is going to be gone, and I'm last man standing. So I'm turning off the lights. Fine. I'll be that guy. This thing is not going off the air until I say so. So I'm the last man standing. But Brock and Mraz join me here for this final edition of the overnight Permission Granted podcast. Boys, how are we?
Well rested. How are you?
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm hanging in. That's a little late for me, though. I'm usually in bed by this point.
Yeah, it's 10:30 p.m., so I'll be getting ready to go on the air here in
about a half an hour from my new bedtime, which I like.
This is your new bedtime?
Yes.
Yeah.
I go to sleep at 11 p.m. and I wake up at 10 a.m. I'm really racking in the time.
So when we came in here just minutes ago, Erica Herskowitz was here, and you hear Erica on CBS Sports Radio, and she handles some updates, and she'll be doing some updates for us as well, and she saw all of us coming in, and she goes, why are you guys all in here? You know, I'm in here early. Mraz, you're not supposed to be here. Brock, you haven't been here in about a month. They probably changed your door code, right?
Yeah, I had to have someone log me in or bring me in because my ID now is only good for the Uptown studios, not here down in Soho.
By the way, by someone, I got him in. What does that mean, someone?
Well, at this point, you don't work here anymore, Mraz.
Yeah. I mean, are you
I'm surprised my code works.
So Erica says, why are you guys all in here? And I say, well, we are taping the final kind of podcast to wrap up the last 2 years of the overnight. She goes, you guys are so weird.
Yeah.
She got that right.
Which kind of describes exactly this whole bit.
Right, that's exactly the whole bit.
So the last 2 years, we were doing the overnights here since January 2013. That will change starting on January the 2nd, 2015, in which we will move the mothership to 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. So I thought it was going to be a good idea to bring us all together to just kind of reflect, a little memorandum, a little kind of look back. You know, when you have shows that go off the air or you hit a certain benchmark, you want to go back, you want to reflect on things, right?
Nothing like going down memory road. What was that line in The Sopranos, Kenny, about memories and looking back?
Oh, it's the lowest form of communication.
Is remember when.
Remember when.
Yeah, that's true. Because the friends that I have from high school or college or growing up, the ones that are most annoying are the ones that always want to go back over the things that we used to do.
Talk about stuff from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Remember that time at
2002?
Louie's house?
Yeah. Oh, my God. It was a great time. No, it's not, buddy. I've had way more better times since then.
Well, even if they were great times, though, it's so annoying to keep reliving them. It's so pathetic.
Right. It's like you see the same person every year, once a year, and they'll always bring up that time.
The same story.
Yeah, remember that time I hit you in the elbow with a wiffle ball? Okay, we get it. Yeah, it happened. Move on.
So this is what this podcast is.
So let's do an hour of it.
A really pathetic looking back, the lowest form of communication here.
Set it up.
All right, so I wanted to kind of go back over the last 2 years, and I think Erica was onto something when she says you guys are so weird, because I believe that the shift itself lends itself not only to weird people in it, but weird people listening to it. Would you say that that's a fairly good definition?
Yeah, well, the normal, I don't want to call them normal because everybody's abnormal, but the 9-to-5ers who get their normal sleep every night, those aren't the people we're really targeting and listening to.
The conventional shifters.
The conventional shifters are not the people listening, and they're not the people working either. I mean, let's be honest. You think we have all our brain cells after working overnights for 2 years?
No.
Absolutely not.
No. So weird is a good way to describe it.
Weird is the perfect way to describe it.
If you guys had to pick, if I may just jump in here for 1 second, the weirdest caller, if you guys want to call somebody out, in the past 2 years that we've had,
yeah.
I have one person in mind. Do you guys have someone who you would classify as the weirdest caller?
Well, do you mean a consistent caller that's called more than the one-hit wonder? Because Painkiller Pat, I think, would take that.
Right.
No, I think Jumpy
consistent-
Jeff.
Oh, now you're on the Jumpy Jeff
Well,
bandwagon.
that's the weirdest. That's the weirdest.
Yeah,
that was the most demented call we ever took.
Probably.
He was weirder than Painkiller Pat because by the end, Painkiller Pat was fairly lucid.
And
we spoke to Painkiller Pat again.
Yes,
a year and change later.
Jumpy Jeff, we have no idea whatever happened to him.
He's probably in a padded room with his straitjacket
There
on.
was no point of that call that made any coherent sense.
No, and
So
I'm
he
still
would be-
confused and nervous about the whole thing.
So is he.
I remember when Sean and I looked at each other like, oh my God, are we about to get fired? Did we do something illegal?
You never knew. There were a couple of those moments. But if that's what you're asking, then, okay, Jumpy Jeff, Painkiller Pat right there. If you're asking a consistent caller,
that's what I was
has
going.
to be the gobbler. The guy is sitting there with a turkey call at 4 a.m. every morning and then has a cowbell?
No, I have to disagree.
He's smarter than you think.
Yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's feeding
I don't know. I
to
think
the
he might be
gobbler
dumber than we think.
propaganda. That's exactly what he's doing.
No, he's entertaining, but
Yeah.
I don't think he's weird. Well, he's kind of weird.
The guy makes turkey calls in the middle of the night and plays a cowbell.
No, the weirdest by far, and there's no question about it, Ron and Callie.
Okay.
It's been a
Ron
while
was consistently weird. You know, his original point started out with Joe Montana's son playing at Notre Dame, then going to somewhere else and doing something else.
Some community college in the Bay Area.
Yeah,
it was like his
JUCO.
fourth school.
Right, in like 2.5 years. And then it was the Charles Woodson was a big topic with him.
But remember, he guaranteed it was one of the first phone calls I think we took the first month or so we were on the air.
Was to Joe Montana?
And and Ron and Callie was adamant Joe Montana's kid was the next Joe Montana.
Yeah.
And he says, you will see, you will see. I don't even think Joe Montana has thrown even a Nerf football over the last 18 months.
He might be playing in the AAA version of the Arena League now. I'm not entirely sure.
I thought he was in 1AA, so I don't know where, or FCS. I don't
So
know
we
where
actually
he
think
is.
he's playing organized football?
I think he was playing at like Montana State or something like that. But I don't know. That could have been like 2 years
Define
ago.
organized football.
So anyway,
Your
so
flag
that's,
football league.
Right.
Well, by the way, do we need you coming back into flag football in
Oh,
2015?
I'm in good shape now. I'm ready to go. The team's coming together.
Okay.
Sorry, not to derail it. I just saw the Facebook post the other day, and I was like, get out of here.
Okay. So, the weirdest is Ron and Callie?
For me personally,
Because he was calling like regularly every night, every
He
week.
even sent us a CD with his homemade music. With him in like dirty pajama pants that had like paint stains on them. I think he might have been shirtless and he had like a guitar.
In front
and
of
it
a
was
barn.
in front of like this old barn with a dog, and that was his CD cover.
And he hasn't called in the last year.
No, probably because we never played any of his music on the air.
And he was always making the steak for him and his dog at like 4 o'clock in the morning. He was like, I'm just feeding my family, man.
So, for those that want a little peek behind the curtain, so my phone screener screen that I see, it says what line, 1 through 6 or 1 through 8 or whatever it is, how many lines we have, and then the name of the guy or the gal that's on the line, then their city and station that they're listening to, and then topic. And so either Brock or Mraz or whoever's producing that night types it up. Now, remember, Ron and Callie used to call, and there was takes that you guys would write down, like Joe Montana's kid is awesome or something like that.
Right.
It eventually became Ron, Callie, KNBR, line 6, another bad take.
Because there was no description. You were going to go to it, and it wasn't going to make any sense anyway. So why even alert you what was coming? You might as well be like a surprise.
Another awful take. Another awful opinion. So we just stopped going to him, and I think, didn't he get kind of upset?
Yeah, because it became a thing where like Ron and Callie would call, I think at the beginning of shows,
He
and
was
it
the
became
first guy out of the
and
chute.
and a lot of times, okay, if you're really right out of the chute, we'll do that. But when you start being the same guy who's calling in the first set of callers every single night, it gets tedious. So if we know you're there and we know your takes aren't that great, okay, peel back the curtain. We're going to let you know you're going to probably get pushed back an hour or so in the show. We'll get to you, but you're going to get pushed back. And I think the wait time started to get to him.
Yeah, it was a long wait time.
He's no Phyllis and Mulga, I'll say that much.
That's a great point. If Ron and Callie was the weirdest consistent caller, who was the best consistent caller?
Ooh.
Either funny or smart or
Okay.
good takes?
I have mine. Mike in College Park, Maryland, would always call, and he
Mike's-
always had a strong take on DC sports, whether it be the Redskins, the Wizards, the Nationals.
And always had a really funny reference to the show.
Exactly. He would
Yeah,
hit that
that
with
guy.
that.
Yeah.
And if I could piggyback off of that, when we were on in Savannah, Ron in Georgia was
Ron in
also
Georgia
an
was
excellent
great.
caller.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Was awesome.
Those would be my two favorites, probably.
I think I would probably have to go with Mike in College Park as well. I forgot about him. He was always great. If I had to throw someone else in there, I think his name was Jeff, and he was in Dallas. And he was like the second or third caller out of the chute. And we wouldn't always get to him first because he would literally be the first person to call. But he was consistently good. It wasn't white hot sports takes, but you knew what you were getting with him. It's like, you're going to get 275 10 home runs, 75 RBIs. It's going to be consistent.
Guy who could hit 7 in your lineup, but always be there.
Yep.
Two guys that I respect a lot, Tony in Columbus and John in Pittsburgh. Now, those guys don't always have hard sports takes. And a great sports talk caller has a good sports opinion and then references the show or an inside joke.
It just shows they're glued in.
Now, sometimes Tony in Columbus would just call about the show. He kind of became our ombudsman.
He was like a Richard Deitch of the show.
Well, if I remember, Tony in Columbus really started to get hot when we did the Valentine's Day show thing.
Hot.
Well,
his stock was rising.
That's when he hit the stride calling the show, because he would basically critique every single one of your Valentine's Day interviews. Like, we would play those, and he would come up, and he would have something to say about every single one of them. And that's kind of what started him, and he took off from there. Anytime something happened on the show, he would reference it.
I like those guys, though, because they're really locked into the show and all the little stuff and all the inside jokes and all the nuances and stuff like that. And they always bring them in. And Tony Columbus specifically asks questions, not sports-related questions. Not, do you think that the Lions can win a playoff game? Not, do you think that the Pirates will win the division? It is, something very specific about the show, like, what did Schwartz have for breakfast the day before he cursed out the opposing manager in the Little League?
And he really wants to know, too. He's not just
question.
kidding around. I give him that. And to your point also, you mentioned John in Pittsburgh. I'll say this about John in Pittsburgh. I can probably guarantee that over the course of 2 years, I don't think he's ever missed a show. Because there has been...
Really?
He might have gone on the air twice a month. He has called, and Kenny will say this, every single night, sometimes 3 times a night, to reference something, to make a joke to us about something on the show, just like we're his buddies along for the ride as he's working all night.
So let me ask you guys, since I wouldn't know this, on that side of the glass, do you guys have callers or kind of consistent relationships or like some type of communication with callers that never get on the air?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Michael Eddy is one of the guys.
Okay.
Miami Mike. Occasionally he gets on the air, but you're right. There's most of the time he doesn't.
Yeah.
There's Trina in Nova Scotia, who I think may have only been on the air once, and she might call me 3 times a week just to chit-chat.
Cecil.
Just to chit-chat?
Yes. Yeah, no, just to chit-chat. She likes talking hockey with me. Cecil
he would call right out of the chute. We'd put him on hold, get to him in the first break, then, hey, man, what's going on?
And he would always call me Schwartz. He'd be like, hey, Schwartz.
Yeah, right.
And I'd be like, Cecil, I don't know how many times I tell you, Schwartz is not the guy screening calls. He didn't get that. And if I could remember one more, it was, I'm freezing on a second. Rashad in Clearwater.
Oh, yeah, Rashad
in Clearwater always calls and checks in.
So, Brock, you've now been removed from the insanity for about a month now?
Yeah, just over a month, yep.
Just over a month, right? So that was around Thanksgiving. So now that you have a little perspective, since we are still in the trenches here.
Yeah.
You are.
I'm in the trenches specifically. Mraz has been out for about 9 days now, but we're sucking him back in here. We're enlisting him again on Friday. What's your big takeaway now about 5 weeks out of the show?
My big takeaway about the show, or just like the show in general,
Either
or how life has changed?
Well, how about your perspective on the show or the network or whatever?
I don't know how we did it for 2 years, like with those hours. I cannot stay up till 10:30 at night now. It's so weird. But you know what? It's different because I miss the camaraderie that you get on the radio side of things with the callers, like we're talking about Rashad in Clearwater, Trina, John in Pittsburgh, Michael Eddy, Tony in Columbus. Because those guys, they care about the show. They're locked in every night, and they want to know what's going on in our personal lives. And they they have a vested interest in what we're doing. And, that means something. It was something like they cared about you personally, but they also cared about the success of the show. And that's something that you don't really get in other, what I've done in the past month and change. We don't get that. It's, okay, pump out this show. It's good. Put that to taping, put it to production. It's all good. But with this, it was live, it was moving parts, it was thinking on the fly. So I think that's what I would take away is just the relationships that you build with people in 2 years that you don't think that you would build going
that we probably take for granted, to be honest with you. We're a part of these people's lives every single night and every single morning, it's crazy to think all the nonsense that we do and put into the show that these people are sitting there. And it's like they literally cannot wait until whatever time zone they're in for this show to come on, because you know what? Like we said, we've kind of been through 2 years of, these hours there's probably a lot of these listeners have been working overnights and stuff for 5 years, and we were a breath of fresh air to them for 2 years, and it makes us feel good, like we put this work in, and they really appreciated it and enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wonder also about, there's a million different ways to skin a cat and to do sports radio, but to have the callers be part of the show, I think is such a strength or such a priority, right? Because if we never took phone calls, yeah, people would listen, and yes, maybe they would kind of get the show and be locked in every night, but there wouldn't be that same relationship that we would have. We wouldn't have this kind of cast of characters or this kind of extended group of people that we talk to and you guys talk to off of the air and everything like that. And I just think that's such an important part, not only of our show, but also of sports talk in general. That, to me, that's really where sports talk sets itself apart, because there's really great sports TV that you can create that we watch, and there's, really great sports journalism, but there's nothing that has the interaction directly with the fan like a sports talk radio show does.
There's no doubt. And just to speak to that, it's not just how you mentioned all the listeners kind of are caring about our personal lives, or caring about what's going on with us, but by taking these calls and having these kind of personalities that frequent in the show and kind of are always calling, the other listeners got used to them too, and they kind of almost felt like they were all buddies because they were in this together. Okay, yeah, this guy's up. He's listening to this show too. I can't tell you how many different tweets I would get during the year. Like after a bad Cowboys loss early in the year, especially that opener of the 49ers, I got like 2 tweets that I can't wait to hear Ron in Dallas call tomorrow morning. Like, these people know these, and it's like while they're watching games, they're thinking about guys they've never met before, but feel like they know because they're calling and listening to the same show and hear them every morning and know their teams that they like and know the opinions they have and can't wait to hear what they have to say when they're watching these guys' teams. It's crazy.
It's like a reality TV show that is constantly on 5 days a week, 20 hours a week. You know what you're getting. You know the same cast of characters. And then when you bring a new person into the mix, most of the time they're shunned at first. They're ostracized because it's like, whoa, what's this weird dude doing? Like the Gobbler, we were all kind of thrown off. And then after a while, it's like, well, where's the Gobbler at? We need a breath of fresh air with him at this point.
Right, exactly.
That's why it's going to be really interesting to see what the listeners that follow us to the new time slot, and then also who is able to listen even if they're not listening live. Because, I mean, now technology allows you to kind of be locked into whatever you want on demand whenever you want it. And that's a really cool thing. So if people are working from 6 to 10 and can't listen, but can normally listen overnights or vice versa, we'll have the podcast, we'll have on demand, we'll have the live stream, and there's kind of a million ways to connect. But at the same time, you kind of have to fit yourselves into people's lives.
Yeah.
Right.
So I wonder how that's going to work. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting. And I guess for anybody listening out there, they're probably used to this podcast and know that whatever we have coming up on the new time slot, the new show, we're going to be podcasting everything. So whether you have a smartphone, pretty much if you're up driving or whatever job you're working, I'm guessing your car or truck is going to have an auxiliary attachment. Get the cord, plug it into the smartphone, have the phone charging, and you're always right there. You could always stream everything and you could always get everything. We still could be in everybody's lives, just at different time slots.
Are the overnights different from a listener standpoint than any other shift?
Yeah, I think so.
No question.
Because there's a lot more free reign in the overnights. That way, they know that they can go a little bit wacky on certain takes. They don't have to be so regimented. Like, you're not going to get the callers that we have calling into Rome or calling into Gottlieb, trying to give their sort of sports takes and getting away with it. I think we had a little more leeway and we gave the callers a little more leash, sometimes too much and sometimes not enough. But I think that might be something,
Normally too much.
Normally too much, but it made for great entertainment, I think. I don't know.
See, I'm glad you mentioned that, Kenny, because I've thought about that too. And I often, because I grew up listening to Mike and the Mad Dog in New York on WFAN, which became like a staple. And I often found, like now that working in radio and working the overnights, I would hope that what we could do in the time changes kind of bring what we did in the overnight to that, because I almost feel like maybe those callers that we get in the overnight, they exist during the day too.
Absolutely.
But I think they're just intimidated to call those shows because maybe there's a guy with stronger takes that they hear constantly calling those other shows, or maybe they're a little more intimidated to be embarrassed or do something like that, where maybe we're just the crazy enough show that can kind of bring them that comfortability that they can call in at a different time slot.
There's a dynamic where the show itself will kind of, I think, define what types of calls you get, the types of listeners that you have, et cetera. And so I think that dynamic can move. I do think, though, that the overnights are different simply from the reality of all of us that were up at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night or 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. are normally kind of bleary-eyed and living a weird vampire-type life. When you know that life and the world is going on when you sleep and that you are up when nobody else is up,
Right.
there is just a kind of a weirdness. There's kind of a lunacy that sets in.
Yeah,
Wasn't there a Christian Bale movie where he couldn't sleep, The Machinist or something?
Oh, yeah.
And he goes down to
yeah.
like 40. He's like 65 pounds. He can never sleep.
Yeah.
He's got this
just fried.
Yeah.
Mraz never had to worry about that, getting down to 65 pounds.
No, that's true.
I wish. That would have been the best diet for me.
Or lack of sleeping.
Or lack of sleep.
For those that don't know, Brock and I always had trouble sleeping during the middle of the day.
The worst.
Right now, Brock was way worse than I was.
Yeah.
He is a persnickety guy when it comes to his sleep. Now,
I don't even know what persnickety means.
Brock.
DA's only been saying it to me for 2 years. At this point, you still don't know what it means. Get a
Got
dictionary.
no clue.
On average, I would say I would have gotten maybe 6 hours sleep per day. Okay, yeah. On a really good day, I could push to 7. On a really bad day, it was 4 or 5. But there was never a rhyme or reason how much sleep I could get. There was no set like, oh, this time of year I get 8 hours. This time of year I get 6 hours. There was no rhyme or reason.
Right.
Brock, you actually would work consistently on about 3 to 4 hours sleep.
Yeah, if 4 hours was like a really good day, I would go home, got out of here, probably fall asleep around 10, wake up at 1, sit on the couch for like 3 hours, just like hating myself. Dude, go back to bed, go back to bed. I grabbed like an hour nap before I came in here. It was probably the worst existence I've had in 27 years on this earth. And then we come in and I'd be like, DA would be like, how'd you sleep today? I'm like, it was probably the worst I've had. I got 2.5 hours of sleep. I was like, DA, how about you? I got 5. It wasn't much better. Mraz, how about you? I got like 13.
Yeah.
I never had 13.
Mraz was laid out every day, and you knew it was a solid 8 hours.
I could get a solid 8. There were times where the minimum I would get was 6. The minimum. That being said, it would still be weird to wake up in the afternoon. But yeah, I did get more sleep than you guys. But you guys never listened to me. You had to get squishy earplugs. You had to get black shades and get a black T-shirt off your face. You know what? In my house, it was basically 1 a.m. when it was 1 in the afternoon. Nobody knew any different.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it had to do with his body was exhausted.
Yeah,
and
carrying around all that weight all the time. It's like, dude.
Yeah, it was given out every day. It was having to digest all the meals that you would eat.
Thank goodness, because they say you need a healthy 8 hours. So I'm happy I did.
Well, they do say overnight shave a couple years off your life, so thanks for that.
I hope not.
I would love to know the normal overnight shifter, how much sleep you can get. Because honestly, I had the shades drawn and it was dark, and I would put on the little white noise thing so I wouldn't hear the noise out in the street, the buses. And
what, like the yoga music you'd have going?
No. You have that. It's like a white noise. It's just like a
shh. Yeah.
It's like a consistent hum.
So I need dead silence. I couldn't be bothered with
No,
that.
I have to have something. Like, I didn't have the white noise machine, but I would have like a box fan going, or even music would help me.
Yeah,
sleep.
the fan would be fine. But Brock and I live in the city. You lived out in the burbs, so there was nothing that ever happened during the day.
I got. It's basically like my cousin Vinny. I got the train tracks right behind the apartment. Comes hawking through.
Well, I don't know how you did.
The fact that you slept 8 hours through that blows my
seriously.
mind.
Earplugs.
Yeah, earplugs.
You need them. You got to have it.
Your body was given out every day. At 7 a.m., it was going.
Well, you know what? Then God bless it.
That's why he
Thank
was
you,
so
body,
miserable.
for giving out every day.
If we would keep Mraz, like normally the show ended, we'd talk for like 5-10 minutes after the show. Then like 6:05, 6:08, Mraz would start looking at his watch like, "Oh, boys, I got to go here."
You have no idea what that traffic's like getting home.
No. It's nothing to do with the traffic. You fall asleep at the wheel at 7:25.
True.
Well, listen, there was a time once I drove Schwartz home. He fell asleep while I was at the wheel. That's scary that he gets home every day. He gets even less sleep than you guys.
Yeah. That's very true.
So I've got like a 15, 20-minute drive home, and then Brock, you had about a half hour on the train or so?
Yeah, it was like 30 minutes door to door.
On the train.
And I had an hour drive.
And Mraz and Schwartz lived near the same area, and you guys had about an hour drive. And you drove Schwartz home, and he was asleep by like the 15-minute mark.
It was unbelievable. So I had a general idea. This happened the first time I drove him home, I had a general idea where he lived because his town's only 10 minutes from me. But I didn't know exactly where to go when I got off the Parkway. Yeah. And we were mid-conversation. He was talking about some nonsense, the New York Islanders, the New York Cosmos.
Moving to Brooklyn or something.
Yeah, something, whatever. So I was just talking,
Islanders power play.
He would make his point. I would listen.
scored.
Right, and it was always uncomfortable driving home with Schwartz because I couldn't really listen to what I wanted to listen to. I just kind of put on noise.
What do you mean? You didn't want to listen to the same thing?
No,
sports radio?
I'll listen to sports radio, but sometimes I need a break. I'll listen to music. But even then, like, at least I'll listen to it. It's like the radio's got to be down because we have to have like forced conversation. We can't just decompress.
Right.
So he would make his point. We were having a conversation back and forth. In the middle of making my rebuttal, I turned over. The guy is sitting up like a big grizzly bear hibernating, snoring, eyes kind of slitted shut, and I literally said the word Schwartz 3 times. He didn't move.
Yeah.
If it wasn't
like in between updates like he does here?
If it wasn't for the snoring, I thought he was dead. But that's how we got. But we got him home.
How did you wake him up?
Well, this is the scary
Jam
part.
on the brakes?
No, I got off the exit that I knew I had to get off at, and I had a general idea.
Right.
It was as if, he was like some kind of dog smelling its way back home.
Internal clock.
He snapped up, knew the exact road we were on, and uttered the words, make a left right here.
I wonder if that's how he drives home. He basically sleeps for 20 minutes on the BQE or
That's scary.
or the Long Island, whatever expressway.
Oh,
and then
that
all of
is
a sudden
scary.
he gets off the exit, boom, he's up and he's home.
It's unbelievable.
Well, Schwartz, at the drop of a hat, can fall asleep.
Oh, my God.
So
There's no doubt. No, I'm sorry. The printer was jammed.
10, 9, 8.
So none of us have kids, and so it helped us trying to sleep in the middle of the day because we didn't have a lot of responsibilities in terms of watching this kid or doing this or driving this kid here. We had responsibilities, but different. Now, Schwartz is the father of 2, and so he would go home, and inevitably he would get like a 3-hour nap after he
Right.
got home, right? And then have to wake up to get the kids to school.
Oh,
or
no. I got this down. It was an hour nap.
An hour nap.
Get the kids off to school,
Right.
have breakfast, because you always got to include that he had the meal.
The second breakfast.
Then
because
he
always
would
grab it on the way home.
Then he would stay up for like 3 hours, then get 3 hours,
Right.
and then be good for the day.
So
That's insane.
He was getting about 4 hours a day, but it
4
was
hours.
broken up.
Right.
Broken up.
And so, I mean, when you live like that, it's difficult. And he Schwartz would come in here, and if it was a bad day of sleep, he would pound out the updates, and then there was 20 minutes in between updates.
Yeah.
Would catch 10 to 15 minutes, right?
His
At
disco
the desk.
naps every single day were like clockwork.
Now maybe he
Sitting
got
up
8
still.
hours all told.
Maybe he did. Maybe he added it up, and it was like.
Right.
But sometimes that mental clock didn't go off. So sometimes when you've heard that 10
Sometimes
count,
you
it
need
was
Schwartz.
Kenny would yell, and Schwartz would come rambling up that ramp like he was getting a running start. It's crazy,
The printer's jammed. Oh, Peter Schwartz.
and he would always be out of breath on those
Oh,
updates too.
Sounded like he just sucked the helium thing. I'm Peter Schwartz.
We had that caller that did the countdown 10, 9, 8, 7,
Yeah.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
And
1.
Schwartz ended up loving that.
And that really helped him out because every time Schwartz was late to an update, I would play that to give him an extra 10 seconds.
And he has stated to this day that he loves that drop more than any other.
It's a saving grace.
Yeah, it's amazing because I don't think I could just sleep sitting up at a computer at work.
No, he does as I'm demonstrating here, he puts the feet up here. He does this. Then
Feet
he
up
puts
on the desk.
Feet up on the desk. Then he goes hands over the Buddha belly.
Okay.
And then most of the time it was head down. But if he was really into it,
Head back, chin all the way back.
You know what makes it even more amazing? This is a guy sleeping off of the amount of caffeine he has. This is a guy who
Oh
would go
my
to 7-Eleven and get a double big gulp.
Right.
And he would
and
basically.
those suckers are huge for those people who
Basically,
don't
like
know.
a soldier going to war,
Right.
he would unload his bullets into the fridge, and he would have 6 Diet Coke stacked along his arm.
Grenades.
Diet Pepsis. Get it. don't
Diet
get it
Pepsis,
twisted.
I'm sorry. Almost like grenades, and he would flick his fingers, and they would just roll off into the fridge. Like his arm was a ski
Yeah.
slope.
Every time he would walk in there, you hear Schwartzo just slugging another Diet Pepsi. It's like, bro.
The guy went through the
Can we get some
equivalent.
water in the
it's
mix
like,
here?
When you include the double big gulp, he went through the equivalent of a 12-pack a night, and the guy's still out cold.
It's amazing. He's got an amazing, an amazing
Healthy.
metabolism. All right, let's go over our top 3 moments over the last 2 years. Okay, top 3 moments over the last 2 years. Now, this year's number 1 on the 12 Days of Christmas that we played last night were you crying over Jeter, which
Sham.
was such an incredible moment and such. It's a sham.
No.
'Cause you-
Him being number one shouldn't have. Anyways.
Okay,
I didn't think he should have been number one in the 12
Boy,
DAs.
we're still debating the 12 DAs here. Get
Hey,
over
listen,
it, Kenny.
I've been out for a month. What do you want from me? I got to get my say in somewhere.
It was amazing to hear you really openly sob and me and Brock just cackling like hyenas at your broken heart. But what was last year's number 1 DA, 2013?
Oh, boy.
Painkiller Pat.
Painkiller Pat.
Painkiller Pat.
You're right.
Yes.
Painkiller Pat. Okay.
Duh.
Painkiller Pat. So,
Yeah.
okay, so that's interesting because I thought my top 3 would have been Painkiller Pat. The phone call was just so memorable and so crazy and gave us so many drops.
Houston versus North Carolina State. Give me a break.
So-
I watched that game.
We're going back to
I was-
83 now. 83.
83, I think that's when the whole
30 years
sport-
ago.
How many beers ago? Probably 1,000.
No. 30 years ago.
30 years ago, yes. They should have never lost that game.
You're
What
right.
did you do to
You're-
my sports, brother? You killed my sport.
You got
Realistic
to rein it in,
program.
brother. You got to rein it in because you are coming off as a complete psychopath.
I can't even watch a sporting event without thinking it's fixed.
And he kind of like walked the balance between totally out of it and then pseudo-coherent, which is the
Right.
best type of crazy phone call.
There's no doubt.
Because it's not just completely off the reservation. He was animated. He was angry. But then he was also kind of laughing at himself.
Right.
He was kind of laughing at the show. So there was a lot there, and I think there was like a 9-minute phone call, wasn't it?
10.5, I think, if I remember correctly.
I believe it was 10.5, and we've had
Yeah.
to shave it down since the replay to like 8 minutes.
So it was a 10.5-minute phone call. That's, for those that don't know the way our clocks work, we have a 15-minute segment or so at the top. Really supposed to be 12, but I usually push that clock a little bit.
Yeah. You've never pushed a clock.
Yeah.
And then
DA runs through stop signs like, Benny Agbayani.
no
basically.
question. You can't slow me down at third. And then the second segment's supposed to be another 11 or so.
About.
Mraz can't count. Normally, you're supposed to come back at 22, break at 34-ish. So, about 12 minutes it's supposed to be.
And then a 7-minute segment.
7-minute, and then normally it's supposed to be like a 4-minute, 3-minute segment
And
at
we
the top
usually
of
get
the
about
hour.
30 seconds.
Usually ends up being you doing an O'Reilly reading a tweet, and we get to the update.
So it's amazing to think about that in that context. Painkiller Pat was a full segment.
Yeah.
10.5 minutes was a full, the longest segment we have was Painkiller Pat. So that'd be my number 3. My number 2 would be the 40-yard dash.
That was amazing.
because was it one Chubbo moment?
One
Puffy moment.
One puffy moment.
Which is what spurned Jumpy Jeff.
Yes.
Because he thought one puffy moment was
yeah.
something using his image, which, believe me, buddy, it wasn't.
One puffy
One
moment
puffy moment.
was probably my number 2 because, and maybe it was my number 1, just because it took us out of our element and tried to make us do some type of athletic thing.
And the way we all dressed that night was so dumb.
It was very, Schwartzo, you had Schwartzo in jeans, Levi jeans, and I think Skechers shoes and just a big dog T-shirt.
Yes.
Mraz was in a skin-tight Under Armour shirt that, basically was 3 sizes
It's
too
so
small.
disgusting. You have to watch it again. It is so disgusting.
That shirt, mind you, threw out yesterday in the closet cleanup.
Okay.
Because it was
There
yellow.
you go.
Because it was yellow.
Yeah, from all the sweat
was
stains
disgusting.
from the 40-yard dash.
It really looked like somebody had put mashed potatoes in a Ziploc bag. It was so gross.
He was just oozing out of everywhere. He had his moobs, his side fat, his back fat, his belly. It was just a lot.
And it
then
was white.
And he was wearing the shorts up.
Not
so he had
anymore,
like
it wasn't.
the frumpy, 50-year-old grandma look going on there.
Hey, I still got it done. I had to be aerodynamic.
DA was in a sleeveless shirt showing off the pythons. I was in a tank top and
Oh, the long whatever you were wearing.
yoga pants.
Jeez.
The leggings on. It was great. And then really because Mraz had barked about how quick he could run, how
Right.
fast he was going to be, and then was so much slower than that. I mean, it's
so
just was
fat,
terrible.
so
So terrible.
I was faster than Schwartz.
Sweet.
And then Schwartz, that we found out that night that he weighs in at almost 400 pounds, that he was 390.
spins.
390, right?
That's, yeah.
390. Don't forget, though, he had lost weight the next week. He was 387.
Okay, so he was 390 that night that he ran, and he ran him in jeans. And he still broke 9 seconds.
Yeah.
That still is the most mind-boggling athletic achievement. He's 400 pounds. He's in jeans and Skechers and
Didn't stretch.
ran a sub-9.
When thinking about that and the time he went, I think one of the biggest mistakes we made in 2 years was not having a paramedic on standby that night.
Or, better, I'm surprised he was able to hit the brakes that quick and not go through that glass right into all the engineering stuff.
All things considered, I think the bosses weren't too happy that night when they next time do it outside. I think is what we were told.
Yeah.
Why inside?
In the middle of the night, when you work in the middle of the night, the bosses rarely have anything to say about you because they're worried about everything else.
Right.
And they're not up when you're on. So if they hear anything, it's kind of secondhand. And they must have heard about this video or heard somebody talking about this video or heard somebody talking about the segment because I was approached by one of our bosses. So where'd you guys run that? And right out here in the hall, right out in the hallway. Next time, do it outside.
They don't want to be held liable.
So the next time when Mraz threw batteries at me, we went outside for that one.
Right, exactly.
Didn't want to break anything.
And-
So
and
what's your number 1?
And so I think Mraz crying over Jeter is the number 1, just
Okay.
because it became national news, because Deadspin and the
Yeah.
big lead and everybody was laughing at Mraz
Right.
for being a blubbering fool, which I love. Mraz, any final words?
We love you, Derek. Go get him the last week.
I can't take this anymore. I've held it in for as long as I could. The tears on this guy's face are so big. Oh my
Streaming.
God. Oh.
He's weeping. He's openly weeping.
Just saw his face. He just turned to me and
Mraz, come on. How you feeling, bud?
Oh boy, Mraz.
You gotta go break.
Talk to me here.
It's over, man. That's it. The child and everything. The big hits, it's all over.
And the whole bit was he is breaking down as you and I are cackling like hyenas. We couldn't find anything more entertaining than his heart breaking. It is really so fantastic.
It was one of the saddest and coolest days of my life.
It was fantastic. That would be my top three. Mraz?
My number three actually is pretty funny. I think is a forgotten moment on the show. Something that, unfortunately, I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe we've just been tired of it, has kind of grown stale the last 6 months or so, but was strong for a while. The day Schwartz did the Bane voice, to me,
that's good.
Will live forever. Because I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget the caller. It was Brett in Green Bay, a frequent caller.
Right.
Brett in Green Bay is a great caller.
Great caller.
Right.
Okay, he's the guy who called originally, did the Bane voice. He fancies himself a big-time Bane, impersonator. Like he's the Caliendo of Bane.
Right.
So
Is there a Caliendo of Bane?
If it was Brett in Green Bay. So I remember, obviously, the epic fail is something I would put together every day. And we had kind of discussed, there wasn't really a great epic fail that day. We were like, well, when the guy called about doing the Bane voice, that was kind of funny. Maybe we could all put together Bane voices. So during breaks, I would set up in the studio we happen to be in now. All of us would run in here and just we had several Bane lines printed, and we would all read them off and do our best. And they all ended up being awful.
All terrible.
Right.
But Schwartz lied out of his teeth. Yeah, okay, I'll do a Bane. All right, Schwartz, you know what it is. Yeah, refresh me on what it sounds like. So I would kind of do my Bane impersonation, which was bad as it was to him. And then he kind of did me doing Bane, but it sounded like a Muppet.
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was like you were actively trying to make it sound dopey.
It was so awful. And I remember when we played that epic fail, we lost it. And when we played the epic fail, it's the very end of the show. So that never really got to catch fire until the next night when we went back to it just to refresh. And then Schwartz basically was almost embarrassed and tried to pin it on me, like I had sabotaged him and that I had led him down the wrong path and that he didn't want to be. He lied out his teeth. Like, Schwartz, just admit it. You sounded like a dope. It's fine. We all sounded like dopes. Right. But that became a famous drop, and it just kind of spiraled. And then Schwartz started doing other superhero characters. And then eventually, by the end of it, we had like a 40-second drop that we played. It was unbelievable.
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan. It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.
It doesn't matter who you are. What matters is our plan.
And no matter how many times we played that drop, we would always laugh. And for whatever reason, if I really think about the last 6 months, that's kind of run a little dry. We haven't done that as much, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, and I think it always was going to be brought back up on the show if a listener would reference it in a tweet or in a call, and then we would play the whole thing. And when the listener stopped referencing it, I guess we moved on to other things, but we really should reprise that.
That has to be. That has to be brought back into the mix. My number two moment actually would be the entire week of Kenny and the Pooh Bear.
Yes.
Yeah, great point.
The entire week, because I remember when that all went down, and Kenny was nice enough to let me stay there the week of the last Super Bowl, which is almost a year ago, which is crazy to think of.
Yeah.
And this whole idea just kind of started as, all right, I'm just going to simply stay on this couch. It's going to be easy to do the show. And then it spiraled into you having this plan, like, oh no, we're going to make this a bit on the show. And then I remember you basically saying, we're going to talk about everything that goes on. And I remember me asking Kenny, I'm like, off air, how much does DA really think is going to happen? We're going to sleep? What's going to happen? What really is going to be funny here? And then we ended up doing all those liners with the ham, sitting there watching Mike and Molly. But then we end up going to do it, and it wrote itself. It was unbelievable. We didn't have to fake our way through anything. It was unbelievable. Yeah. Between the dog walker story, between alarms not going off, between, basically...
You meeting Jesse from...
Oh, yeah,
from
Jesse
Breaking
Pinkman
Bad,
from Breaking Bad.
And Kid Cudi and I slept in and
you
blew
slept
it off
in and
that
missed
day.
that. But it was a comedy of errors. I was obsessed with the fact that he lived near the Cake Boss. There was so much that happened there, and it was unbelievable how that literally went exactly how we had hoped.
One is from Philly. The other just wants a Philly cheesesteak. It's Kenny and the Pooh Bear.
Mraz, why is there honey glaze all over the couch?
I was watching Mike and Molly with my ham.
Your ham likes to watch TV?
He likes it better than being eaten.
Oh, Kenny. Here comes the Pooh Bear.
Yeah, you say it's dumb luck, but it's really not, because you guys are like polar opposites. Right. And so if you just put oil and water together, you just wait and see what happens. And it was inevitable that you guys in close quarters was going to be the weirdest, craziest, funniest thing that could possibly happen because you were going to get aggravated at everything Mraz did.
Every single
Everything.
thing. Every single thing.
You get aggravated with just spending 6 hours a night with him here in the studio at a workplace. But for him to be in your living area also was going to blow the top off.
Completely.
If you were in his living area, you would also be perturbed, but it wouldn't be nearly the same.
No, because I couldn't be because I would be a guest in his home,
Correct.
but it's my territory, so I'm going to, boss him around.
So Mraz in your territory was going to be great. Also, because there was going to be so little sleep involved, come here, do the show. Go home, maybe sleep a little bit, then go work again, then come home and sleep a little, then come to the show. And working Radio Row, inevitably, the tensions were going to raise higher and higher and higher. And then also, just to have to get ready for work and then ready for Radio Row and ready for work again, there was going to be some crossing of the streams.
Believe me, there were a lot of crossing of the streams. I think I stunk that whole week, by the way.
You smelled.
Yeah, you did.
Terribly.
I smelled.
Terribly.
I was a smelly kid
I remember
in class.
walking around the Super Bowl media party, because we did the whole eating thing where you ate something from every single
Oh, you mean I ate something for the show?
Yeah, shockingly.
That didn't happen in 2 years.
Every single food stand. I remember, trailing behind you, and you just had this waft of just, big man BO after, not a proper couple days.
I think I went through a whole stick of deodorant that week.
And for those that don't realize what Radio Row is, well, you probably know what Radio Row is, but it's like a huge convention center where all these sports talk radio stations are for the week before the Super Bowl, and there's all these guests that come through, and it's like this big, huge convention, and it's chaos and traffic and nuts. And that creates such a stress on any show because even if you're just there for the week, you're doing the show, but you're grabbing guests from, it's like the stock market floor. And so I knew that you add a living situation that was awkward on top of a stressful work situation, on top of us doing the normal show.
Right.
And it was like you guys lived basically a month within those 5 days.
It was unbelievable. I'd never do it again.
Ever.
But we got through it, and it's memorable, and we have the stories.
And was that...
that was number two. My number one would be the same as your number one, because you know what? It gave me my 15 minutes of fame, which was pretty cool, which was the me crying over Jeter. I mean, the Deadspin, I went on with Boomer and Carton. I did two what I thought were real radio hits, but I was on student radio stations in North Carolina and San Diego. I ended up on Opie and Anthony. It was very cool. For me, 2 years working the show, getting 15 minutes of national fame, I'm not gonna lie, the ego grew through the roof that week.
They booked you for these radio shows.
Yeah, what happened was after I did the Boomer and Carton hit, which was actually 2 days after I had cried, I went to sleep like, all right, well that was cool, and woke up to
time out. Let's talk about real quick about how we couldn't get you up to do the Boomer and Carton hit.
Ties into sleeping, yeah.
Because I was at home. Lou Gower's texting me, he's the breakfast coordinator for Boomer and Carton.
What a job.
And he's texting me, yo, where's Mraz? Where's Mraz? It's like 7:15, 7:30. I'm like, dude, he's sleeping. You're not going to get him up. Lou Gower calls you, 15 times probably?
I woke up to so many missed calls.
Yeah, and then so finally I call him to get him up. He's like, dude, I'm not doing this. I'm going back to bed. So we almost didn't have this come to fruition if his dad didn't come bang on his door.
My dad
if I
came
didn't call
over.
Him.
My dad had surgery on his legs that week and happened to be off of work watching Boomer and Carton on TV and came running down to Six Houses, hobbling on one leg, in his sleeping underwear shorts and slammed on the exact window he knew I'd be sleeping by to get me up to do it. And then from there, I ended up falling asleep after that, woke up to all these emails, and it all hit me at once. And those radio hits I did, I thought I was going on these big, I was like, this is great. I'm going on like a book tour here. And I come to find out later on when I looked them up, they were student radio stations.
Whoops.
Fantastic.
Easy booking.
That is fantastic. And I remember as Boomer and Carton was going to play that, you and I are texting back and forth. And you're like, you got to tune in B&C. They're going to play the audio coming up here next. They're trying to get Mraz on. I'm like, get Mraz up. He's got to do this.
Absolutely.
And they really set the ball in motion because we had played that, and I think it was 2 days later that they played it on the air, right?
Yeah, because I had gone to the third to last home game. That was what spiraled it out. And it was when I sent that text, and that night on the show, I had cried on the air, and it was all after that was the last time I saw Jeter. And so then spawning that 2 nights later is when Jeter has the walk-off hit on that Thursday night, and that's his last game. And that kind of led to Jeter Mania that next morning on radio, and that is when they had played it. So it was actually 2 days later that all this happened.
Another great arm off of this extension, off of this story is so that week was huge for us because every major news outlet, sports news outlet, kind of picks up the link of the YouTube video, and you're doing all these radio hits, and everyone hears about the DA show and everything, and it's just like everywhere I turn, people are texting me, I can't believe Mraz cried, I can't believe your producer cried, I just saw you on this, I saw you on that, and I'm loving it. And I go into the boss's office that week, and I forget what we were talking about, and of course they're talking about something else. I said, well, so what'd you think about all the national attention that we got? It was good. I said, yeah, it's kind of great, right? Yeah, there's Jeter mania happening out there, so people are just kind of grasping at straws for different angles in the story. And I'm like,
God forbid.
I guess, but I think this is real. It was also really good radio, wasn't it? And they're like,
And it's also the most pub the network has ever gotten, by the way.
And I had seen our actual boss that next week, and he kind of he introduced me to one of the AHR people, whatever, and he had told me, he goes,
yeah, we had a meeting about some FCC violations or something?
Yeah, something that week. And he had he told me, oh, this is the kid who cried. I go, oh, you heard that or whatever? He
this
goes,
is the kid who cried? Is that how they introduced you?
Yeah, exactly.
This is the kid who cried.
He goes, one of our producers, that whole thing. So then I go, yeah. So I'm like, oh, so Eric, you heard? He goes, yeah. He goes, good job. Now go back to being a producer. I said, okay, I'll go do my job.
That's fantastic.
That's like hitting the home run. You come in expecting all your boys to give you high fives. Everyone just stiffs you and they're chewing on sunflower seeds.
Unbelievable.
That's absolutely when, David Meggett returns a punt return for a touchdown. He high steps into the end zone, and Parcells grabs by the face mask and goes, what are you doing? We just won the game, coach. You don't ever do that ever again.
For the record, we just had a David Meggett drop here in the Permission Granted podcast.
All right, so your top three, Brock.
Top three, it would be the same as Mraz with the Kenny and the Pooh Bear the entire week. I thought that was phenomenal, and it was an experience that I will never forget, but will never wish upon my worst enemy. Number two, I can't believe neither of you brought it up. Will in Baltimore, maybe our second most famous moment here on the show.
Yeah,
right.
Just with the whole dynamic of Will, dropping this rap, because we basically became like 106 in Park for the overnight listeners.
Right.
We had how many people calling up and rapping like the last couple months of the show?
I think I have at least 14 saved.
Yeah, it's like so bizarre. Everyone just had a drop. They wanted to come in, and Rashad would call in the break and say that he wanted to, this is my, my radio rapping career.
We had like an East Coast, West Coast thing.
You're the aliens. It's time for you to learn your place. Don't think you can spit them whack-ass rhymes and get away. I'm the judge and the jury. I decide your fate. I'm backing you in the corner, and next is checkmate.
And Brock was grading them out like it was the X Factor because you were the musical director.
Absolutely. And there's still a couple of people who are not pleased with my grading out, but what are you going to do?
Hey, what's up, DA? How are you, man?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm 33. I work the graveyard shift at 7-Eleven, and the Orioles are down 3-0 in the ALCS, but I'd be much better if you could bring me up to the mothership. Team Mendelara. Nothing rhymes with a Mendelara. I even went as far as the Google search a capybara. Hey, DA, let me call you back. I'm being robbed.
And just that whole dynamic, and then to find out was it a week later, 2 days later? I don't even remember at this point.
It was probably 2 days later.
2 days later, and for him to call up and say that it was fake because he felt bad because of all the run that it was getting. I mean, that just the mind warp that was going on that week was pretty insane. And then my number one, obviously, Mraz Jeter crying.
Interesting. So we all had the same number one.
Yeah.
So do you think if Will in Baltimore didn't go viral that he would ever have admitted it?
No. He would have taken that to his grave.
Yeah, 100% he would have took it to his grave.
But I bet you his buddies were probably like, yo, is that you from, the DA show? And he's like, yeah. They're like, oh, what, you got robbed? And he's like, oh, all right, I got to come clean on this.
But because it blew up so big, he had to come clean.
I think the other part of this is, though.
And the Baltimore PD or Baltimore Sun getting involved, looking into it, that's,
I mean, that's amazing. The Baltimore Sun investigated all robberies that night at 7-Eleven and wrote a story about it.
And by the way, I'm looking up the phone number, Googling what exact 7-Eleven it's coming from. I did some real MacGyver work that night.
For the first time ever.
Which is... But I would say this, though. That wasn't the first time Will was called. Will actually is part of our song library, too. He had called with a Raven song at the beginning of the season. So he had called several times. So he would have had to call again at some point. And knowing he was on the line, we would have asked him about the robbery again. So I don't know necessarily.
He would have stuck to his guns.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Because even when he called back and admitted that he lied, at first he was still lying about exactly what had went down. And he just kept stringing you along.
Because the thing is, he could have gotten away with this.
Yeah.
This was going to be the perfect crime. He had gone viral.
He would have gotten away with faking a crime.
Yes, because he could have simply come on and been like, somebody robbed, like we joked about, a bag of Bugles, or
Right.
A couple taquitos.
Yeah, a couple of Gatorades, and he ran out. And I called the cops, or I didn't call the cops because it wasn't that big a deal. I tried to chase him down, but hey,
Right.
But it wouldn't have lessened that moment any.
No,
because he just said, "I'm getting robbed." That could have been anything. He didn't say, "I've got a gun in my face."
Right.
He didn't say.
But we all immediately assumed right away because of the way he hung
When you
up.
think of robbery, you think gun to the face. Well, sorry, bro, I got to get the money out of the safe.
He could have said anything, and instead he copped to it, which is kind of amazing because he didn't really have to.
Survivor's guilt. That's exactly what that was.
That's a good point.
Survivor's guilt.
There's still people so upset that we allowed him to be eligible for the 12 DAs. That was now 3 months ago or something.
DA, we did about a month on it afterwards. I mean, you talk about not a lot going on in the sports world, I guess, huh?
Yeah, during the middle of football season.
Right.
That
All
was
right.
phenomenal.
All right, well, we'll wrap up this version of the Permission Granted podcast. I don't know. Do you have any previews that are going to come up here? Brock, maybe you can point Mraz in the right direction of how the side B producer side is supposed to go here, because you kind of had anchored that through the first 5 months or so, 4 months.
Yep.
Now, Mraz is going to take that over. What should he do here for the side B?
Well, learn the reads, A.
Yeah,
he still doesn't have that.
Refuses to do them.
No, he just doesn't know, and he'll try to do them, because the last couple I've done via phone because it's late for me.
It sounds great.
And I'll do them, and so you got to learn how to do that. You got to learn how to just pub the podcast.
It would be like Ian Rappaport or Albert Breer taking us out to break on our show.
Right.
Right. Albert, let us know what's coming up in the next segment.
Right. And then them not knowing. I think I'm on NFL Network tomorrow. You can see me at like 1, maybe. I don't know.
It was like when Ward didn't know his own Twitter handle.
Yeah, so Ward's got to learn that. Let me see what else can maybe be a little more entertaining. You're a little too self-serving. So throw to the hogs. Let Ward get involved a little more. Give him a little personality.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, boy,
because
Kenny really lets the truth come out here on the farewell.
Hey, listen, the last month, DA, you've missed some great stuff on the podcast. That Mraz has went back and edited out. He says it's not good for air, but it's been hilarious stuff. So that's the other thing, too. Stop editing so much, bro.
You know what you're
Just
like?
let it be.
You're like Charlie Sheen when he left that show, and then he
2.5 Men.
Yeah, 2.5 Men, and he created that other show where just basically
Anger management.
anything went. That's the problem with you.
Well,
I
that's what
can't
you
let
need.
anything go.
Why not? This is a podcast. This isn't FCC sanctioned.
Doesn't matter. I got a career to worry about, Kenny.
Not much of one. So yeah, I would help James develop his personality a little bit on the show, because James is a very shy guy. He can become the tattoo guy now. Now you have that tattoo guy. I don't know about his drug references, where he's at there.
Sure.
But his college football knowledge is on top too. So make sure you just let him breathe.
So
don't
be a ball hog is what you say.
No,
on
basically,
side B.
yeah. Like how DA is from September to November. Don't be like that. Be like DA.
Oh, boy, he's taking shots your way now.
Be like DA from May until July.
Okay, so be July DA. Okay, July DA. All right, do we have anything fat to talk about next?
That's good feedback right there. That's, for Mraz. I won't change how I do the show.
I'll take those criticisms.
Before we get out of here, who is an underrated potential personality on the show? Because now people that are listening to this are going to have to get used to a lot of different personalities. Mraz and I will be moving with the show, but there will be a new cast of update people. It's not one update person, and Schwartz is staying overnights. So there's also going to be both Moralia and Ward doing what Brock's job was. So two people there. Out of the update people, out of the guys on the board, who do we think is a potential sleeper here?
Okay. I'll give you one. And I think we might have referenced earlier, if not, Erica Herskowitz. But you know why?
Herskowitz called us weird.
We have not had really any women other than when Amy basically fills in as a host.
Or Dana pops on once in a while.
Dana pops in once in a while, but we're probably going to have Erica involved on the show once every 2 weeks, I'd say. And you know what? It'll be nice to get, she's funny, she's interesting,
great.
and she can be very quirky like the rest of us.
Right.
And I think having a woman on the show that way can only enhance the show.
Yeah, female voice.
Yeah.
And she's really funny. She kind of gets the show. Yeah, it's a good one.
Hey, Erica, how are you? She's sitting outside the studios right now, just waving to her. Dark horse. I think James is very buttoned up, so I'm not going to go James. I'm going to go with Moralia.
Okay.
Because you never know what you're getting with him.
Yeah, Moralia
He's
could be
a wild card.
Yeah, he's a firecracker.
He's like the type of guy who will cut the brakes before you guys get into the car, and then you're driving 85 down the highway.
Correct.
And we're like, oh, how are we stopping? He's like, oh, by the way, I cut the brakes.
Yep.
You don't know what you're getting with. He's a degenerate gambler.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
He's
probably the
like-
biggest at the station.
He's a degenerate. I don't know how I'm paying rent this month type of thing. It's not good.
But you know what? That actually brings me, and I think we're live thinking of ideas on the show.
Yeah.
Moralia's going to have some money on games going on while we're doing the show.
There's no question.
Which is only going to be funny to check in. Hey, Steve, how are your bets doing tonight?
Yeah.
And it's always going to be, well, they're not good because I'm hemorrhaging money out of my backside here.
Yeah. I think Moralia is a good potential dark horse candidate.
And his
because-
laugh will be a drop, too, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good. And I think he's also chomping at the bit to get a little airtime.
There's no doubt.
Right?
Absolutely.
He's
Him and Ward have both come into camp in shape. Basically, I'm like Strahan and the 07 Giants. I've skipped camp. I'm just coming to opening day on Friday. They have. I basically have been spending my time in the Bahamas. I'm just going to show up on opening day, ready to go out there and go get after the
care
quarterback.
if you're getting fined every game. It doesn't matter.
I could care less. Those guys have come into camp in shape and they're ready to go.
They were out in Cali with George Whitfield running through the water, ball above their elbows.
There's no doubt. Those
I
guys
could
are ready
definitely-
to go.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun with them because they're two totally different personalities.
All right. Well, there is our kind of 2-year memorandum. What did the guy from The Sopranos call that? The lowest form of communication?
The lowest form of communication is remember when.
That's our look
Feach
back.
Lamano.
That's our look back on the last 2 years of the overnights. We'll continue doing this podcast, and Brock, you'll continue to be part of this, hopefully. And you've given the salute to Ward's winners or whatever.
Ward's winners, yeah, that's gotten my blessing.
Ward's wagers.
Ward's wagers is okay.
That's better than Ward's winners.
I think Ward's winners is good because it gives you a preview of what's to come. He's going to give you winners. Ward's pretty good.
Do you think that's a jinx, though?
No. Maybe. Maybe I'm subconsciously trying to jinx him so he doesn't do better than I, but I don't know. I'm not that type of guy.
Okay. So that's you can always follow us on Twitter, DA on CBS. Mraz, yours is
Sean Morash, CBS.
Are you thinking about changing this to Mraz CBS?
I've told him that for months.
I think the problem
Better
was
for branding.
Absolutely.
I think I could probably selfishly gain more followers that way, and I probably will go down that road. The problem was I kind of use it as that professional. If I ever have to use Twitter to book a guest, I want my real name with the CBS there. But you know what? I think I've made enough of
the Star Wars
headway.
guy. That really helped you out there.
Exactly. If I'm not booking guests anyway, I might as well make the switch.
Well, they don't know that you're not Mraz, and Mraz. It's not like it's the Thictator at CBS.
Right, and
right,
as
that's
long
true.
as it's
Although that's a good option.
Professional picture, too, because you're going to have your name. Like, they'll just see Sean Morash, and then they'll see your Twitter handle as, like, a subset.
Well, you know what? I might have to switch the pictures. Right now, I got the Chubbo magazine shoot as my thumbnail. Maybe I'll switch that up.
One thing I'm so glad that I missed.
And, Brock, your Twitter handle?
At KBrockJR.
All right, so follow us on all those Twitter handles. Also on YouTube, youtube.com/The DA Show. Also, we'll be on SoundCloud and iTunes, obviously, with all these. Just search DA's Permission Granted. And the show moves Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. on many of your CBS sports radio stations. And also, you can listen to us live on the app, the CBS Sports app. We'll see you next week.
It's the DA Show, that's on the radio. If you're up late on the job or just coming home, it's 2 a.m., the mothership set sail till about 5:55 when they do the epic fail. This is for the fans who listen every day. Here's your cast of characters and some things that they say. Host with the most Damon, would you wake up please? Untuck your shirt and let Mendo Laura speak. Got my man Kenny, he's on the wheels of steel. His Brock's locks, man, they're losers for real. Schwartz screams, screw you, Portugal, as he's sprinting in jeans. He butchers tennis players' names, it's Guy Monfils. Target demo, Margaret Watch, and Nightlights too. You need to eat like this, so here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go pick beef, liquefies down your throat. Puffiness with sodium, how the thick tater rolls. Bruce getting loose on the roof with some booze and his dog. Cowboys got the ass beat like Mraz eating hot dogs. Wings a bum, better take your raincoat with you. He's a third-string quarterback and a whole snap or two. They'll get your timeline popping as Mraz cries I just want him back. It's all about the money, DA, that's a stone cold fact. What's going on here? A bunch of rigmarole. Don't think I forgot about Billy Jackarone. Is that too much swag? Now move your effing purse. The 12 DAs, man, the best of the worst. You got the robot guy, Brian from Boca, and the Gobbler too. Drunko's calling in saying, I'm so proud of you. The pulling tuba playing with the Zubaz on. Scavenger hunts and motor speedways, well, you know what what's on. It's the DA show, best on the radio. If you're up late on the job or just coming home, it's the DA show, best on the radio. I am out by man, it's my time to go.